Your name is victory. Oh,
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Passion Bolton 2030 Supporting Asylum Seekers and Refugees Conference. It's great to have you with us. It's a nice snappy title. We do like a nice snappy title. But it's great to have you with us this evening. I'm Keith Armstrong. I'm the project manager of Bolton Christian Community Cohesion and also a part of Passion Bolton 2030 Townwide Church Unity Group. And one of the main aims of both those groups is to assist churches and other organisations in developing their support for the Bolton community. If we could have the next slide, please. And this is the mission statement and vision statement of Passion Bolton 2030. Our mission is to share the love of God across Bolton, and the vision statement is to see a thriving, prosperous Bolton with the United Church playing its part. And since we set up in about 2017, over the 4 years, the group, which comprises of church leaders and leaders of Christian organisations in Bolton, have organised various conferences, church leaders meetings and initiatives. And last year, we decided to set up 7 task and finish groups. And if we could have the next slide, please. These are the task and finish groups. There are 7 of those to focus on particular areas. And you can see halfway down on the right-hand side is the Supporting Asylum Seekers and Refugees group. And that's the group that's presenting this conference tonight. And we have looked at different ways in which we can develop the support of churches and Christian organisations for asylum seekers and refugees in Bolton. We produced a flyer, which you may have received last year, this little flyer with lots of information on, and we decided it'd be great to hold a conference, and so that's what we're organising for tonight. So we could have the next slide, that would be great. So these are the aims of the conference tonight. So what we're going to try and do is develop the support of asylum seekers and refugees in Bolton by churches, other Christian organisations and individuals by suggesting ways in which they could, first of all, support existing organisations who support asylum seekers and refugees. And we've actually got representatives from 5 organisations in Bolton that do amazing work in supporting asylum seekers and refugees who are going to be speaking tonight, from the Bolton Destitution Project, Bolton City of Sanctuary, Boaz Trust, Bolton Lighthouse and Willows Community Centre, and Brass. And we've only given them 5 minutes each. So they could probably have the whole evening for themselves if they wanted to and tell you all about everything they do, and how they support asylum seekers and refugees and how you can help them. But we've only given them 5 minutes. So they're going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what they do. And we're going to give you their contact details in an email tomorrow, so you'll be able to contact them to ask them any questions that you have. You can also put any questions in the chat as well, which I'll mention in a minute. The other ways in which we're going to suggest tonight are develop support and activities for asylum seekers and refugees in your own churches and organisation. And so we've got some of our task and finish group where we're telling you ways in which you can do that. And also, we're going to suggest how you can signpost people to support available in Bolton and beyond, and access information, support, training available from other organisations. And one of our team members is going to give you lots of contact details where you can get other information and support from. During the evening, please put any questions you have in the chat. We've got Darren here to my side who's monitoring all the chat. He'll be answering some of your questions. And some of them at the end, if we've got time, he'll be able to answer some of those in more detail. Any that we can't, we'll actually give to the person that you directed the question to, and they'll send you an answer via email, or they'll get in touch with you with the answer to that question. So, what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to pray, and then we're going to start the conference proper. Dear Lord, it's hard for us to fully understand how difficult it must be to be forced to leave your home country and to have to start again in a foreign land. So we pray this evening that our understanding and compassion will increase, and that we will all gain a clearer idea of ways in which we can develop our support of asylum seekers and refugees in Bolton. We commit this conference to you and ask that you will be a blessing on all who are attending and involved. Amen. Great. So it gives me great pleasure. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers tonight. Never has such an amazing group been put together in Bolton. They're all sat looking very confident in front of me. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first guest speaker, who is Paul Barnes, who is a member of our Task and Finish group. He's also a member of St Edmund's and St Patrick's Catholic Parish, and he's a volunteer at one of the support groups who's going to be speaking tonight. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Thanks for your introduction. Yes, as you can see on the slide, Keith has explained who I am, so I'm going to move on quickly from that. I'm actually the coordinator of the drop-in coordinator of the Destitution Project, which you'll be hearing more about from my colleague Shahida in a moment. So my first task, if we can move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, my first task is to try and explain the difference between asylum seeker and refugee. People use these terms very loosely, so let's get a clear picture. First of all, a person who arrives legally within international law by whatever means from another country which they have fled from due to violence or other issues threatening their lives is known as an asylum seeker. Now, on arrival, they are dispersed across the UK, provided with accommodation and £5.66 a day, and then they start the process. Of seeking asylum. They have no rights to work or claim benefits. Now, if their application is subsequently turned down, they become known as what we call a refused asylum seeker. And they are allowed to apply again any number of times. In some cases, at this stage, the Home Office will deport them back to their country of origin if there is a belief that on investigation, their country of origin should help them. Also, some decide to return voluntary at that stage. Moving on, when they are successful, next slide, please. Sorry, that's the next but one slide. Can we have the second slide, please, or third slide? Which is, that's right, thank you. So when they are successful, they then have the legal status of what we call a refugee, which entitles them to get leave to remain for a specified period, which may subsequently be extended on application. Following a successful outcome, refugees are given 28 days in which to find new accommodation, and they're allowed to seek work and claim benefits. Their £5.66 per day ceases at the end of this 28-day period, and at that stage, many of them become destitute until their benefits kick in or they find work. Next slide, please. So let's look at the situation in the UK, and then we'll come on to the situation in Bolton in a moment. So if we think about the year ending September 2020, so fairly up-to-date figures, the UK received 31,752 asylum applications, compared to our countries in Europe of 155,295 in Germany, and 129,482 in France, 128,520 in Spain, and 81,465 in Greece. Now, the UK is 17th in the list of countries receiving asylum seekers in relation to each country's size. Can I have the next slide, please? So you might be thinking now, well, where do they all come from? Well, there you are. You can see on the slide that there is a table. And if we look at the very top, we've got Iran with 4,199. This is the top 15 most in the UK in 2020. 12%, in fact, came of all the refugees, all the asylum seekers from Iran. If you look down the table, Syria, with a figure of 1,746, they had the highest percentage success rate of application, 88%. And then if you look at India, which had 1,046, they had the lowest success in applications, 6%. Okay, right. So let's move on to the next slide, please. So we come to the situation in the Northwest, a bit nearer home. At the 30th of June 2020, 10,083 asylum seekers were being hosted in the northwest, equivalent to about 1.4 per thousand of the population. The second highest level only to northeast of England, which was 1.6 per thousand people. You can see the sources with where all these figures come from. In 2020 in Bolton, between 880 and 938 asylum seekers actually were successful and got asylum support during each quarter, right, as you can see. So, copies of all this information will be available. Thank you for listening. I'm ready for any of your questions at some stage. Thank you very much. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague from Destitution Project, who is our senior caseworker, Shahida Mangara. Thank you, Shahida.
Thank you, Paul. So as Paul said, I'm Shahida. I'm the senior caseworker at Destitution Project. Next slide, please. Destitution Project is based at the Victoria Hall in Bolton. Next slide, please. So our mission is seeking to provide a safe environment where Bolton's asylum seekers and refugees can find friendship, food, and practical help. Next slide, please. So on the casework, these are some of the things we collaborate with other organizations such as Red Cross, BRAS, the Bolton Council, Refugee Actions. We also liaise with the GP, mental health, legal aid providers, housing and temporary shelters. Some of the other work that I do is also attending court tribunals with asylum seekers and much, much more. But obviously don't have enough time to go into it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. Next slide, please. Yeah. So during April 2019 and March 2020, just on my department, casework department, I had 1,057 people who visited for help on their casework. So as you can see from the figures, Iraq were the top on our access, which is 294, and the lowest we had was one person from Yemen. But this is just the figure to give you an idea, the people who come through our doors and the countries they come from and what practical help they need, especially with their case support. Next slide, please. So asylum casework is regulated by the Office of the Immigration Service Commissioner, OICS. So asylum seekers and refused asylum seekers often come in with complex situation and mental impacts from their lived experience. So please do signpost people to DP at Destitution Project or any other OICS registered organization. Otherwise, their cases may become compromised and difficult to resolve. Next slide, please. This is just some of the things we do at the drop-in. So currently our drop-in is closed due to the coronavirus, but at the moment we're just running the casework department, the clothing department, and the food bank department. But before that, on the drop-in, these are some of the things we run at the drop-in: the casework, the information and triage team, which is on the casework department. They're my reception, and they just triage people what help they need, and they will then wait for me. And they also provide other information for signposting. We do tea, coffee, and biscuit all day. We provide a hot meal on the premises. We have free clothing and bedding. We also provide weekly groceries and toiletries for destitute, refused asylum seekers and their families. We have activities such as tennis, pool tables, etc. We also run English classes. We have a barber, so everyone gets a free haircut. We also have, if we have any extra perishable food items that are given away to any other service users. We do arts and crafts activities, special events, and occasional trips and excursions. Next slide, please. We also work together with the Bolton Mutual Aid, who cook for us the hot meals at the drop-in on a Wednesday. So that's just to show you the picture of some of the activities on a busy drop-in day before the pandemic happened. Next slide, please. That's the pictures of our food bank room. So you can see even during the pandemic when we carried on providing food parcels to our destitute asylum seekers. Next slide. That's the picture of our clothes room, and this is where we have a separate room for all the clothing, bedding, baby clothes, shoes, etc. And everyone is entitled to that. Next slide, please. This is the picture of our weekly English classes for ladies and for men, but as I've said, at the moment, we're not running that due to the COVID. Next slide, please. This is also one of the pictures of our arts and crafts that run on a drop-in. So some of the pictures from there of the people who participated, and some of them are very, very talented, as you can see from the pictures. Next slide, please. We also have a social space, fun, games, and a free barber. So those are just some of the pictures from our drop-in days from before the coronavirus started. Next slide, please. We've also had excursion visits, such as the football stadium, football matches. So that's just some of the pictures from day trips out in and around Bolton. Next slide, please. One of the questions we were asked today was how churches can help. So if people can refer any asylum seekers who need help with any aspects of the asylum case, they can contact me, book an appointment, and they can come in and see me on a Wednesday or a Friday. So face-to-face case work sessions run on a Wednesday and Friday. You can also donate items such as food, toiletries, baby items, bicycles, etc. You can also fund us. The link is there, and you'll also get the details of the link. You can also volunteer for us at the Destitution Project. Next slide, please. Right. This is just our details at Destitution Project, our address, our charity number, our email address, and our website, which you'll get at the end of the session. Thank you very much. I'm going to now pass you on to Sayam.
Thank you. Dear all, I'm Sayam Khan. I'm a refugee and theatre artist and filmmaker. I and my wife, Farjana Kabir, sought asylum in the UK, and we are moved to Bolton in 2017. Since then, we are so lucky, like other sanctuary seekers. We have all the supports from the City of Sanctuary Bolton. And with the great and kind support from the City of Sanctuary Bolton during this pandemic, we found new hope, a community, and a future in the UK. Now I'm a member of City of Sanctuary Bolton committee and has representing City of Sanctuary Bolton on a stage with other refugee artists and the host communities with remarkably diverse storytelling groups. Octagon Theatre is one of them, and they are supporting sanctuary seekers in Bolton as a great partner of City of Sanctuary Bolton, who are supporting a lot of new arrivals through our space workshop. Next slide, please. Over the past 18 months, I performed in and directed other performers from diverse backgrounds in short dramas at Manchester University, highlighting the therapeutic benefits of drama. The production was supported by City of Sanctuary Bolton, where a new work called Mourn and Heal, written by us and performed and represented City of Sanctuary Bolton's arts activities. City of Sanctuary Bolton also running ladies drama group with the partnership of Octagon Theatre, which already performed successfully in various occasions. Next slide, please. City of Sanctuary Bolton also have creative writing group who are engaging sanctuary seekers in writing their own poems, and those poems were performed publicly with success. One poetry performance was at Bolton Library and Museum in 2019. As we have received support from the Bolton Library and Museum, We're glad to know that Bolton Library and Museum has recently been awarded as the Library and Museum of Sanctuary. Next slide, please. Moreover, City of Sanctuary Bolton has partnerships with Community Rail Service based at Bolton Station Services, which has provided free travel for asylum seekers to their court cases. We have had group travel passes to allow exploration of the area around this town, this Bolton. Next slide, please. We had partnerships with the Woodland Trust, where refugees were able to visit parks in Bolton and planted many trees. Next slide, please. We also have some schools, St. Gregory's, St. Michel's, and St. Matthew's, who also have stepped forward to help refugees' children and were awarded a School of Sanctuary to promote social inclusion and cohesion. We also have the Sewing Sisters, containing a large group of enthusiastic women, and that we host shared meals in variety of venues. Next slide, please. Since the last summer, City of Sanctuary Bolton has provided tablets and data bundles to sanctuary seekers to connect us with the wider community. And this digital inclusion was necessity for the disconnected part of our society during this pandemic. Next slide, please. Now I'm involved in a project managing and facilitating an online arts-based series of workshops, Different Past, Shared Futures, which is funded by Bolton at Home. Next slide, please. Bolton welcomes a high number of asylum seekers. Working with groups of people from all communities, we have identified that understanding the reasons why people come here help acceptance of new arrivals. We signpost newcomers to other important places with the most recent data available to us. We would be able to explain more if we have more meetings with churches. Therefore, considering all this I have mentioned, I would be grateful if churches could also help by having a point of contact for contacting refugees. And we would be happy to see churches joining our committee on our Zoom meetings and in person when permitted. Churches could buddy up with sanctuary seekers and bring more activities to groups. We are collaborating now. Thanks for having me. Now I'd like to invite our next speaker, Ross Holland from Boaz Trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Saeem, and thank you. I feel like I've spent weeks and months of my life on Zoom over the last year, and it feels really weird to be stood in front of a camera. It just feels very strange. So thank you very much. As Saeem said, I'm from the Boaz Trust in Manchester, and just to introduce a little bit about what we do. So the Boaz Trust is a Christian charity that was founded in 2004 by Dave Smith, who's also here tonight and will be speaking later. And our vision is that people who are seeking sanctuary will experience life in all its fullness. And so the way that we work to see that happen is primarily by providing accommodation and support. So we provide accommodation for people who have basically become homeless at some point during the asylum process. So that could be after a negative decision when they've been refused and they've lost the right to any accommodation or support or employment or anything. Or it could be if they've had a positive decision and been granted refugee status. But as we said earlier, people then lose their asylum support and may end up in destitution. So we started off as an organisation that used hosting with local families to provide accommodation and very quickly grew. So people who had a spare room would very kindly offer that to someone who was seeking safety here. And over the years, that's developed and grown, and we haven't been able to host in that way through lockdown. But over the years, we've grown a shared housing project. So we now manage just over 20 houses. So currently, they're all in Manchester and Salford, but we are keen to see if there's opportunities to grow and develop in other parts of Greater Manchester, including Bolton, which is where I live now as well. So as well as the housing, we've also run a winter night shelter with local churches, which has been an amazing way to provide accommodation to people who've really got nowhere else to go. And again, unfortunately, because of lockdown, we haven't been able to do that this year. So at the moment, we're providing accommodation to around about 75 people. Around half of them have had their claims refused and the rest have been granted status. Alongside the accommodation, we know accommodation is absolutely vital. People need somewhere safe to stay. But we also provide holistic support. We work really closely with organisations like the Destitution Project and others that are doing really vital work to bring people together. But we also work closely with solicitors and ensure that everyone's got the access they need to good legal advice, to medical care, to specialist support, counsellors, therapists, all those kind of things that are so important. For people who've got refugee status, we help them find employment and education opportunities. And really our hope is that we will be able to see people move on positively with their lives. Over through lockdown, we've carried on with our work in the same way, but we've also started to work in a slightly different way with different homeless projects where they've started to see more people who've had their asylum claims refused or have other issues with their immigration status, and we've been able to provide support for them as well, again working alongside solicitors and other specialists. One of the things that we were meant to share about tonight is what can churches do? And I think the first thing I would say is pray. I think when you look at the news, it can be utterly overwhelming when you see what's happening in our world. And when you see the atrocities that are happening and when you read the stories of why people have had to flee and had to end up in this country that they never would have chosen to come to. And when you think about what's been left behind. So sometimes it can be overwhelming and we need to pray. I think the other thing that's really important is that I think we need to be kind. There was a really great little article in the Bolton News about this event tonight, and I know some of us read that, and it was great to see that. The comments underneath that were horrific, and I would recommend that you never read the comments underneath any article about immigration. But we can be kind. You know, immigration is a subject that does raise emotions. And I think, you know, as Christians, as people of faith, we've got to counter that with kindness and with hospitality. And we might not have all the answers, but actually we need to be kind and we need to offer love and a smile. And that includes to the people who are leaving the comments sometimes. And I think finally, the other thing that churches can do is to get involved and get connected with some of the organisations that have been here tonight. You will have all our contact details. So if you've got questions about accommodation or support in any way, please get in touch with me. I know the others would love to hear from you as well. Organisations are always looking for more volunteers and so on, and support, financial support, food, donations of items. I'm sure everyone here tonight representing a project would be really grateful for that. So thank you. I think that's probably my 5 minutes up. I'm now going to hand over. We're going to watch a video with Kat Powell from the Bolton Lighthouse and the Willows Community Centre in Dean. So enjoy that.
Bolton Lighthouse is a prayer house and church community in Dean, which is a very ethnically diverse area of Bolton. As part of this, we have an English class, an art class, a cafe and an allotment. It's a small community, and I think its strength is that it models family for people that have been taken away really from their family and their friends. So I didn't know much about asylum seekers and how to help, but I wanted to help. I felt like I needed to, but I didn't really know where to start. So every Tuesday we turned up at the Willows Centre and served tea and coffee, and I just tried to be useful, and that was the start for me.
It's very good because of the friendships that I had.
I feel very good when we are worship together, and I can see people from different countries. That made me really good. When I came in England, the first year it was very hard for me, especially for the language, because I feel unconfident all the time, and my self-esteem was low. That is very, for me, that is my experience. It take a long time to heal in that. atmosphere of the lighthouse helped me to feel good about that, because I identified with the people in the lighthouse and really helped me.
They will be called works of righteousness, a planting of the Lord, for the display of his splendor.
Yeah, so what we're trying to create here is an environment and a place where people can come, they know that they belong, they know that they can entirely be themselves, they can come entirely as they are.
We are working here together. It's very good for me, also Dharma. For like this time is, it's quarantine time is, yeah, we are working in the garden. It's nice to, good for the health. He's only working here, not going to anywhere, and good for him. Yeah.
It's good to share with men work, especially with the manual work. For example, make a seat and table, and especially work with wood and tools, and that is very nice.
In all of this is sometimes awkward, there's miscommunication and sometimes rejection, but I think Jesus has called us to this space, not for us to feel like we can fix things, but that we can just join in what God is doing and allow Him to speak to us and even transform us.
Well, wasn't that brilliant? And a huge thank you to Kat Powell and the team at the Willows Community Centre and Bolton Lighthouse for putting that video together for us. So that's 4 of the groups that we've heard from tonight. The 5th group is Brass, who have been doing some amazing work in Bolton for many years now. And Brass stands for Befriending Refugees and Asylum Seekers. Unfortunately, none of the members of Brass were available to speak tonight. So they passed on some information to me, and I said I will share that during the conference. So they're based at the Park Lodge, Green Lane in Great Lever in Bolton, and they do all these different things that are listed here. So they have specialised advice on immigration and asylum, citizenship, rights under the law. They support and information to access public services. They have English classes with trained ESOL tutors and volunteers. They have workshops to promote understanding of UK life, rights, responsibilities and community participation. They provide opportunities, training and support to develop skills as peer supporters and volunteers. They try to reduce isolation by promoting well-being through creative fitness, healthy eating, group activities and drop-in befriending services. And they signpost to appropriate agencies, organisations locally and nationally. And their main contact is Malcolm Nguala, whose name is on there, and their contact details are there at the bottom, and they'll be sent with all the other contact details in the email we send you all tomorrow. So if you'd like to get in touch with them to find out more about what Brass do and the incredible work they do, then that would be great. Now, we already heard a little bit about what it's like for an asylum seeker coming to Bolton when Siam mentioned what he did, and he went on to actually be a volunteer, and he's working now with the City of Santry, and that's fantastic. And what we're going to do now is we're going to hear from another gentleman who came to Bolton as an asylum seeker called Kovan Gergo, and he's actually been supported by the groups that we've mentioned there, but also he's been supported by churches in Bolton as well. So he's going to tell you now a little bit about his story.
My name is Kovan Gergo, and I'm Kurdish from Syria. 1 million Kurds in Syria, so they're stateless, they don't have anything. I remember when I was a kid, we received a letter from my father and my grandfather. We all family, we live in one building, and we received a letter from government, so they always told us leave this village or leave this country. we can't go anywhere. We've been living here over thousands of years. It's our land. How are you gonna take us out? In 2013, war started in Syria, and it's getting worse. And me and my family, we left. We went to Iraq in a camp. I come to Turkey with my father, my uncles. We used to work so hard, trying to survive. And they don't want me to stay there. They want to me have a better future. I come over when I was underage, 16 years old. I come by the lorry from Turkey all the way to the UK. I didn't want to come back, but my uncle sent it to me. I've been supported by social service, and I used to live with the English family, and I used to study in school and college. And because I'm Kurdish from Syria now, in Syria I was a stateless, not just me, my whole family, because we were Kurd. We don't have a passport or anything. We don't even allow to go to school, university or hospital or anything because we were Kurds. And so when I come over, and even Home Office didn't believe me I'm Kurdish from Syria. Sometimes they told me you're Kurdish from Iraq, sometimes they told me you're Kurdish from Turkey. And they refused me, they didn't accept me, and I had an original document which has been waiting for 7 years. And I've been supported by social service till 21. After 21, so they didn't support me anymore. So they told me you have to go apply for Section 4 accommodation in Home Office. So I tried it so hard, tried it 6-7 times. They refused it, they didn't give me, and I became homeless for 2 years. It was hard. It was really hard. I was under social service in Cardiff, so then I became homeless. I came all the way to Bolton, so I had a friend and trying to get some support, and a friend sent it to me to Destination Project, which is here. So they support me by food parcel, a voucher, and house, and accommodation, and especially my caseworker Shahida. She's done a great job. I'm just gonna say, if not because of her, I won't get a visa. So I just don't know how to say thank you to her. And they done a great job for me. All teams from Destination Project, Sarah, Shahida, all of them. I had the support by Bethel Church as well, Pastor Gordon. He's an amazing guy. He's a great guy. He helped me a lot. So we've been cooking food every Tuesday or every Wednesday, whenever he's free. He give me his time, We've been talking for all day, trying to help me with as much as he can. And yeah, he sent a report and reference to Destination Project, and Shahida, she was dealing with my case with the Home Office, and because she was my caseworker, so anything from anywhere, so I have to send it to her, and she done it, she deal with my case. And but Pastor Gordon, he every time found the Destination Project, my solicitor and Shahida, and getting update every week, and every Christmas time he invited me in his house, and for Christmas dinner I was in his house with his family. It was really good. I felt like I was with my family. Yeah, so, and all team in the church, Graham, Paulina, Jackie, everybody I had they are so amazing people, I had everything, support, caring, and they praying for me.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm part of this Task and Finish group and the Minister for the Triangle Community Methodist Church, and it is a pleasure to work with these people. And the stories we've heard tonight are real stories by real people. So what can we do as communities and as individuals to help? Could we have the next slide, please? Well, there are lots of things that we can do. You could invite one of our wonderful speakers to your church or to your community event to come tonight and to talk about those stories and the work that they do. You could arrange for one of them to come and speak to you, and what a difference actually hearing somebody's story makes rather than just seeing it and reading it in the news. Invite someone to come. At the beginning, Keith waved a leaflet around for us, and that has been emailed out, and I would suggest that you print it off and give it out to people in your church when you're back together, and it gives all sorts of information. Donate. Food and toiletries, all sorts of different things that people need, electronic equipment. Any one of these organisations will be really grateful to receive the things that you've got. Signpost to English classes, or even better, see if you can arrange English classes within your building. Become a volunteer. You will never be turned away. And actually, we think we volunteer and we give something to somebody else, but we receive far more by volunteering. But just to go along and to talk to other people and to find out their life stories and to share their culture, as Gordon says, just makes a huge difference. If you as an individual or as a church have a charity that you donate to every year, what about adopting one of these wonderful charities tonight and making them a focus for the next 12 months to give them a real valuable financial input? Arrange a food-raising event or volunteer. What about a befriending service or a sporting activity, inviting people to come along and play football or whatever it may be? Or what about a craft group? I can't knit. I've never been able to knit, but we had a craft group at the Triangle, and one of the ladies tried to teach me how to knit. And a lady who was a refugee from Africa was sat next to me, and her English wasn't very good, but my Swahili was non-existent. And she tutted and shook her head because I couldn't knit. And she took the knitting needles off me and she showed me how to do it. Well, I still can't knit, but I now have a friend in Adelphine, and it was over a ball of wool and knitting needles that we became friends. And you just don't know what you're doing if you start something quite innocently like that, and it can make such a difference. So think about all the things that you as an organisation or you as an individual could do.
I'm Dave Smith, and I currently part of the team at the Jubilee Plus, which is a social justice and social action network, a national network dealing with all sorts of social issues, one of which is refugees and asylum seekers, and I coordinate the refugee network part of Jubilee Plus. If we can have a look at the next slide, please. There are just 2 slides here, and I'm just going to focus on this one here, which is some national and regional organisations that will be most helpful for you. And I'm just going to mention 4 on there because we're a bit short of time. And the first one is our own at the top there, the Jubilee Plus Refugee Network. It's basically a resource for churches and Christians, all things to do with refugees and asylum seekers. It's a help that's there designed for churches to be supports. So there are 8 content blocks on there. If you go into the website, you'll find 8 content blocks on things like ways in which you can help, and there are 12 ways in which you can help. There's a news page, there's an events page of things that are coming up. There are 100+ resources in there, reports, briefings, research, guides, biblical information, biblical stuff there that you can use in church. And there's a local projects page as well. So not just Bolton, but right across the country, there are 299 local projects on there. So lots and lots of information. So I would encourage people to have a look at the Jubilee Plus Refugee Network website and just explore it and see what you can find, because there's lots of information on there. The second one down is really important as well. That's the Refugee Council. And they have a fantastic up-to-date information on asylum and refugee facts. It's the best place to go if you want to know myth-busting stuff, real statistics about the number of people that are coming, some of which were mentioned earlier on today. That's all up to date on the Refugee Council website, and really, really important stuff. A little bit towards the bottom there, you'll find Refugees at Home. I just want to mention them because they are a national hosting organisation, and if you have a spare room that you might be willing for refugees or asylum seekers to use if they're homeless, then you can contact Refugees at Home, and they will help you through that process. 2 down from there, finally here, I'm going to mention Right to Remain. Right to Remain, again, is a national organisation. They have a fantastic toolkit. And the toolkit is basically designed for asylum seekers to navigate their way through the system. But it's great for people like us as well. If you don't know how the system actually works, the Right to Remain toolkit is an absolutely fantastic resource, which is online, and you can also get a hard copy now as well. Right at the bottom there, as Tussle mentioned before, Welcome Churches. Jubilee Plus works very closely with Welcome Churches, and Welcome Churches basically provide the training for churches to welcome refugees and asylum seekers, and whereas Jubilee Plus more really offers the information more. So we work very closely together. And we do actually have a bi-monthly prayer hour, so you can find that on our website as well. So if you want to join us to pray for refugees and asylum seekers, you'd be very, very welcome to do that. And that's me done, I think, and I'm going to hand over for the final bit, which is to Darren Holland, Rosa's husband. And Darren is from the Bolton Methodist Mission at Victoria Hall and a member of the Task and Finish group, and he'll be closing the conference by discussing some of the questions posed in the chat.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you to everybody for not fielding me with any difficult questions that I have to answer. I'm really grateful that there hasn't been anything that I've got to stumble across and try and work out. But I guess like me, you've been pretty overwhelmed by the depth of information that we've heard this evening. I've learned so much and probably will go away and have lots of questions. And thankfully, I'm married to one of the speakers, so I can ask her. But if you are feeling later on that you wish you'd asked something, then make a note of your question and email it to Keith Armstrong. His email will be coming up very shortly. And any questions that you have about tonight's presentation, you're welcome to email them to Keith, and he can field them by sending them to the relevant person who might be able to answer that certainly better than I can. And so really what it leaves me to do now is just to say a huge thank you. First of all, to you for attending. It would have been really lonely without you all coming to be with us tonight and sharing it in this conference. But a big thank you to our speakers who've been remarkable and have shared so much information and helped us to really, I hope, understand what we can be doing to support people who are asylum seekers or refugees in the Bolton Borough. It's great that our churches are doing so much already, and so many other organisations are working for the benefit of so many people. And as you'll see, that there are some agencies and organisations listed there, and all these details will be coming out to you. Keith will be emailing all the details of this conference, contact details, as well as this leaflet, which will be coming out, which is printable. Do encourage you to print that off, print as many copies as you like, and distribute them amongst your churches. It's got loads of great information in there of the charities that you've heard from tonight, as well as others, and the organisations that are offering the kind of support that we've been hearing about. Do please take the information back to your churches, get your church leaders excited, get your congregations excited, and try and encourage them to think about ways in which you can respond to the situations that people are facing in our locality, even now, as we join together. We've heard some fantastic stories, but for others, the story will not be so great yet. So I do want to encourage you that it is our biblical mandate to support those people who come to us and long for hope and love and an experience of the grace of God working for them. And we can do that. I do believe that, church, that we have the opportunity and we have the means by which we can support these people. Even if other people feel we're wrong to do that, we have the opportunity. It's a God-given opportunity, and I believe it's what Jesus is calling us to do. So do thank you again. Thank you to the tech team, Ben and Sam here at King's, who've been remarkable tonight, who made it all go seamless. They've been gliding around like swans, even though they've been paddling frantically underneath. And it's been great that they've been able to facilitate all that's happened tonight. Thanks to Keith for hosting, and thanks again to you for coming. As I say, all the information will be coming out to you, so please do look out for those emails when they arrive. But thanks again, good night, and God bless.